Alright guys, welcome back to Underground Science, and in this video we'll be going over how the lymphatic system and the immune system actually work together in a way, alright? Because we'll see that the lymphatic system is actually has lymph nodes that are part of the lymphatic system, and there's a bunch of immune system activity that goes on with the lymph nodes, alright? So in this video we'll look at an overview of that, alright, and get a better idea of how the immune system and the lymphatic system work together. Alright, so let's go and get started. So let's go ahead and draw our, our blood vessel, right? Let's go and get an idea of this. So let's go and draw our blood vessel right here, just a basic large blood vessel. Alright, and there's that. And then let's draw our tissue, right? Our cells, so our tissue cells in gray, I guess. So let's just go and draw a bunch of cells here real quick. And instead of just drawing it in front of you guys, it's going to be kind of boring, so we'll be right back, alright? Alright, here we are. Okay, so I just drew it just as regular dots, alright? Just a bunch of dots representing just cells, alright, of our body. And we have our blood vessel running here, and I didn't really take time to draw the layers of the blood vessels, like the tunica intima, the tunica media, and the tunica externa, or the adventitia layer. But if you want to know more about that, go and check out my layers of blood vessels video, and that's that, alright? So these are our tissue cells, right? Or just our cells, it's just referred to as. And so we're trying to look at what's the connection between our immune system and our lymphatic system, right? So let's say we have some puncture or something happened that it led to the fact that we have some type of virus or bacteria or some pathogen, all right, in our tissues. So we're going to represent this as some type of virus or pathogen, all right, or bacteria or anything like that. And let's say there's a bunch of pathogens here. Let's just be general, right? Because it can be anything. It just doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be only bacteria, right? So let's say we're representing some sort of pathogen in blue, all right, and we're representing our body cells in gray, and then the red is obviously representing, or the blood, this representing the blood vessel, all right? So we have a bunch of little pathogens here, and we have to somehow start fighting these pathogens before it grows as an infection, right, in other tissues, or if it gets big enough that it might even start going into the blood a little. Okay, but it turns out that we have lifesavers in our tissues. It turns out we have a good amount of phagocytes in our tissues, right? So some phagocytes that we should know, it's going to be a good thing to know when we talk about our immune system. So some phagocytes are going to involve dendritic cells. Dendritic cells can act as phagocytes. Macrophages can act as phagocytes. And even neutrophils can act as phagocytes. All right, so these are some of our many white blood cells in our body. All right, so it turns out, so let me go ahead and actually erase some of these cells. So let's go and erase like a chunk over here, and I guess like, oh man, a little chunk over here. Let's make some space, just a couple. And next thing I'm gonna draw are, we can even draw macrophages or dendritic cells. Let me go and draw dendritic cells, all right? So our dendritic cells, let me just go and try to draw our dendritic cells here, right? So I was trying to draw somehow like a star-shaped dendritic cell, all right? And remember, a dendritic cell is a white blood cell and acts as a macrophage, a phagocyte. And what a phagocyte can do is that it can phagocytose, right? So it can pretty much eat the pathogens up, and it'll destroy the pathogen inside of it, and then it can present that pathogen as a antigen presenting cell, all right? So a dendritic cell can act as an antigen presenting cell. All right, and you know what? We're not going to get into that right now because that's not the focus of this video. We'll talk way more about that in the immune system playlist. Right now, just know that orange will represent our dendritic cell, all right? So a dendritic cell is pretty much, just think of it as a important white blood cell that eats up pathogens, all right? Just know a dendritic cell as that, for this video. All right, so a dendritic cell. All right, so it's just a white blood cell that's going to eat these pathogens up. All right, so just know that for now. So let me go and draw one more right here. Okay, again, it's called a dendritic cell. All right, it's not the same thing as dendrites, by the way, like for a neuron. Okay, so just know that also. So we have a dendritic cell here, and what it's going to do is that there's many macrophages and dendritic cells present in our tissue cells. All right, and when it sees these pathogens, what it can do is this. The dendritic cell can reach over here, right? Wait, what am I? Okay, it can reach over here and gobble this pathogen up, and same with this dendritic cell and the many other macrophages and dendritic cells that are around, right? So what's going to happen is that this dendritic cell can actually phagocytose, which means just bring this in, right, through endocytosis and eat it up, eat this pathogen up, and this dendritic cell will actually destroy the pathogen up inside of it. All right, so let's say this one eats this up, okay? And what's this going to lead to is this. All right, so this is what it's going to lead to. After the dendritic cell eats those pathogens up, right, what it's going to do is going to take it inside, and it has these special, really cool enzymes, all right, these lysozymes that will actually destroy the crap out of this pathogen and break it up into smaller pieces, as you see here, into smaller proteins. So we'll represent this black color with lysozymes, all right, lysozymes. All right. So our dendritic cells are going to eat the pathogen up, and then it's going to destroy into smaller pieces, smaller proteins. And we won't get into too much detail about it, about what protein it presents it on and all that. Just for now, let's just know that it eats it up. All right, and that's it. Okay, just for now. And then what happens next, pretty much, is that so first, right, we should draw our lymphatic vessel next. So our lymphatic vessel kind of looks like this. All right, so it's going to kind of look like this and kind of like that. All right, and the reason why I'm drawing a little space is, I'll tell you in a bit, is because they have these kind of like flaps here, these flap-like valves that are actually on the outer surface of these lymphatic vessels. So first, let me represent the green for our lymphatic vessels, right? And so these dotted, the reason why I drew it dotted is because it has flaps where if fluid enters, right, if enough fluid enters, and once the pressure inside this lymphatic vessel increases due to the fluid that enters, then these valves will actually snap shut, and so that it can secure the fluid inside, and so no fluid leaks out again. All right, so that's why I drew it like that. So let's draw, so we forgot to draw that also, so hopefully we have enough colors here. All right, so let's draw interstitial fluid that leaked out of this arteriole, right, because of the high pressure of the heart, So let's draw fluid right here, right? That's also in between our cells in the interstitial space due to the high pressure of the heart that leaked out from the arteriole and the capillary bed, okay? And so what's going to happen now is that the dendritic cells can actually enter the lymphatic vessel. So let's go and draw that. So where's our other color? Now, the dendritic cells can enter here into our lymphatic vessel. We'll just draw one for now, right? So let's say that's our dendritic cell with its broken up antigens, right? And we're just saying this for now, that it just breaks it up. There's actually more that happens, right? We'll talk about later, and also we have fluid that will enter also. So the leaked out fluid will also enter. And remember from our overview of the lymphatic system video, most of that fluid will actually enter back into circulation on the venule side of our blood capillaries that are near our cells. Okay, so but 3 liters, right? At the end of the day, 3 liters of lymph about is formed. So fluid will actually enter our lymphatic vessel also. So let's go ahead and draw that. So we have some fluid here that enters, right? And we have our dendritic cell with the pathogen broken up. And also what can happen is that sometimes, right, or generally I should say, that what can happen is that the pathogen itself can also enter into the lymphatic vessel with the fluid and the macrophages, or the other white blood cells like the dendritic cells. So again, right, so let's draw some lone pathogens here also that can enter our lymphatic vessel in addition to our dendritic cells and our fluid that leaked out of our arteriole, right? All right, and so so these materials inside, so let's go and write this down. So what's inside our lymphatic vessel right now? All right, so what's inside our lymphatic vessel? We see our pathogen itself, and then we see fluid, of course, right? And then we see our macrophages, our dendritic cells. So in this case that we took an example of is our dendritic cells with the pathogens in it, right? Or the broken up pieces of the pathogen. And that's pretty much it, right? Generally. So this is the main things that we should know to be familiar with what's going to happen next is that so now, right, once the fluid buildup occurs in our lymphatic vessel, because pressure builds up, because our fluid pressure builds up, or hydrostatic pressure builds up in our lymphatic vessel, so our pressure will build up due to the increased amount of fluid, these valves, or these flap-like valves, will actually snap shut so that we can have a one-way flow of whatever's inside the lymphatic vessel. Because our ultimate goal is to bring all of this fluid back into circulation via our thoracic duct and right lymphatic duct, which we'll discuss later. But ultimate goal is to bring back the fluid to the heart so that we can pump that fluid that was leaked out into the interstitial space from the arteriole into circulation. All right, we're trying to pump the extra fluid into circulation via the heart. All right, so now what's going to happen is that this lymphatic vessel is going to take all of these materials and it's eventually going to reach a lymph node. Okay, so it's eventually, let's say it goes all the way here, and then eventually it's going to reach a lymph node. All right, so lymph node kind of looks like that. All right, and what this lymph node is going to do is that it's actually divided into a outer cortex and a inner medulla. All right, so it's divided into a outer cortex. So you know what? Let me just go and draw this a little bit shorter or narrower. So it's divided into an outer cortex and inner medulla. All right, so this is going to be representing our medulla of our lymph node, and this is going to be representing our cortex of our lymph node. In our cortex of our lymph node, it turns out we have these white blood cells called B lymphocytes in it. So we have B cells, bunch of B cells in our cortex. All right, so we have a bunch of B cells in our cortex, and we mostly have T cells in our medulla. All right, so we mostly have T cells in our medulla. All right, but if we just take the general overview of it, what happens is that when these materials come into our lymph node, this acts as a filter for our fluid that leaks out. All right, so this acts as a filter. Our lymph nodes act as a filter for any pathogen, right? Filter for pathogens, because what will happen here is that our B cells, our T cells are very important in that they will interact with this dendritic cell, eventually producing antibodies through the B cells, right? So the B cells will then eventually produce these antibodies specific to whatever pathogen came in, right? So let's say this pathogen came in, all right? Let's say this pathogen came in, and we also have other macrophages present throughout our lymph nodes. So let's say in general, so let me go and erase this. Let me go and erase this cortex and medulla lining here, because we're trying to get the overview down here, but to know that we have a cortex and medulla that separates our lymph node. But in general, if we have a pathogen here, we also have some macrophages here, right? We also have some macrophages here that can also take this bacteria in through phagocytosis and break this bacteria up into smaller pieces. And eventually what this will lead to, in addition to our dendritic cells that are coming in, eventually what this will lead to is that our B cells right here and our T cells will work together, and eventually our B cells will start producing antibodies specific to this antigen from this pathogen, so that it can go, so these antibodies can get produced and then get pumped into the bloodstream, right? So that we can use these antibodies to fight off our infection, or to fight off if our infection spread into our blood, then we can use these antibodies to fight our infection there, or any other place where we need more types of white blood cells and more antibodies, so that we can perform a function called opsonization, where the antibodies can bind to pathogens and inhibit them from functioning, right? So it can go help in this area altogether. So again, our B cells will produce a bunch of antibodies, right? So remember, antibodies have made up of heavy and light chains, right? And so our antibodies will then go from here, and it's going to continue to our through our lymphatic system, all right? So let me go and draw this in the same color, and it'll go here, and then eventually dump into our superior vena cava of our heart through our subclavian veins, right? And then once it does that, from the heart, we know that it'll get pumped into our circulation, right? So it'll get pumped into circulation, and then these antibodies are now in our blood plasma, and then can go get used wherever we need it to get used, right? So that's the function of our lymph node. It acts as a filter, because whatever pathogens or bad, pretty much bad pathogen or bacteria or viruses that are in our tissue that can enter our lymphatic vessel, because remember, in the beginning, our lymphatic vessels are open, that they have these flap-like valves that have we have endothelial cells surrounding our lymphatic vessels that actually have huge spaces between them that can allow pathogens to enter, can allow dendritic cells to enter, various macrophages to enter, fluid to enter. And remember we said once the pressure inside the lymphatic vessel increases, then our lymphatic vessel, the valve-like flaps, actually snap shut, so that fluid doesn't leak back out, because we want a one-way flow, right, all the way back to the heart. It's because we don't want to lose a lot of fluid. We don't want to lose a lot of fluid. All right. And so that's pretty much it. Another can't speak. Sorry about that. And another cool thing to know is that in our body we have around 600 to 650 lymph nodes, right, in our body. So we have 600 to 650 lymph nodes in our body. So remember, this is our lymph nodes. So let's go and label this real quick. So this represents our lymph node. All right. And so that's basically it. That's I think it's a good place to end. We got the overview of the connection between our lymphatic system and our immune system. I hope this video made sense to you guys. I really hope to see you guys in my future videos, where I'll talk about more cool topics about biochem, physics, and chem. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, and like and subscribe, and see you guys later, and stay safe.